Hey everybody, welcome back to Average at Best. Today we're breaking down one-handed versus two-handed, pros versus cons, power versus accuracy. Stay tuned if you want to see which is the better option for you. Hey everybody, welcome back to Average at Best. As always, I'm one of your hosts, Rob, and today we're back with another video breaking down the one-handed versus two-handed game, the pros and cons, and which one you personally should be bowling with. Now, for those of you who are fans of the channel, you know we've been gone for quite a while. A lot of you are like, where have you been for the last 6 months since the Tournament of Champions? I'm gonna go ahead and break this down as quick as I possibly can. First off, we got a little burnout after the Tournament of Champions. It was all day, every day, staying up, editing videos till 3 a.m., back at the bowling alley, 7 a.m. the next day, so it was a grind. We did get burned out, admittedly. Secondly, both Josh and I are in college, and as you know, those of you who went to college out there, you have to do a little something called an internship with a lot of college degrees. So both Josh and I had to attend an internship this summer. We really didn't have any time to go bowling and record videos just outside of our free time, and we just didn't have much free time in general. But now we do, we're back. We're gonna go ahead and get right into today's video. Real quickly, I'm gonna go ahead and shout out, thank you guys so much for 5,000 subscribers. That is absolutely unreal. 5,000? I would have never fathomed that. Please, if you would, go check out the Patreon down below. We get a lot of specific questions about how do I fix this in my game, how do I fix that. With the Patreon, you can go ahead and get access to a more direct connection to us. You can ask us specific questions, send in videos. We can give you our advice. We're not professionals though, just fair warning. So for some of you who are in the behind the scenes at Average at Best, you know that I bowled a summer series this summer, every single Friday night. Now, on a complete whim, I bowled this summer series, half of it one-handed and the other half of it two-handed. Because I've bowled a little bit competitively two-handed in the past, I practiced some with it, and I thought, you know what, I want to see how I can do in true competition on sport shots, on PBA patterns, bowling two-handed. And you'll be excited to hear that I cashed 3 times one-handed. I also cashed 3 times two-handed. So it was a very equal split, and as somebody now who has bowled competitively their whole life one-handed and now has bowled competitively not just this summer, but a couple years ago, two-handed as well, I feel like I'm in a position where I can offer advice, pros, cons of each of the 2 styles. One of the main myths that I'm going to debunk right off the bat is the myth of two-handed and one-handed being completely different. They're really not all that different. Your body position, getting to the foul line, like, they're really not that insanely different. The main thing is when you're bowling one-handed, you have your thumb in the ball to hold the ball all the way through, and then when you come on your release, your thumb comes out and your fingers will release the ball. That's what creates the rev rate. With two-handed, your offhand is your new thumb. So as you go back, that offhand is what's holding the ball on your hand. Same as what it would be if you had your thumb in the ball. As you come through to release, this hand comes off first, your fingers come through the ball, and that's where the rev rate is generated. Massive rev rate is generated by that snap of your hand coming behind the ball. And the reason you generate more revs two-handed is because you don't have a thumb in the ball, and it's a lot easier for that ball to just snap off your hand with speed if you just have another hand on it. So now what I'm going to do is just demonstrate some shots for those of you who are a little bit new to the channel of my one-handed versus two-handed game. I'll highlight different things about each, and yeah. So I know what a lot of you might be wondering, why if you bowled one-handed all your life did you try bowling two-handed in the first place? A couple of years ago I was developing issues with this section of my wrist. I was developing pain, also along the back side of my thumb here I was developing pain. So basically both sides of my wrist I was developing pain. It was becoming very difficult for me to snap the ball off my hand because the harder I snapped it off my hand, the more pain I was in. It made it so I basically just babied the ball at the bottom, and I know a lot of people are gonna say like, well, you don't really have to try hard to generate revs. In general, it's been very difficult for me one-handed to generate a very high rev rate, and to also get my hand into an advantageous position, the pro position, like we have done a couple videos on in the past, to really maximize the core inside the ball and get your ball motion to be proper and readable. I'll go ahead and demonstrate here. You'll notice my hand is a little bit more on top of the ball. I mean, I'm actively trying to keep it under. So here's a little demonstration shot. So So that one was pretty good. Okay, that one was pretty good. That one I actually hit it pretty hard, and that's why you see the result on the lane, it overhooked. And one of the key things for me is making sure that at the top of my swing, I just let the ball come down. I have a big problem of wanting to muscle the ball down, and what that does is that decreases your flat spot. That's the area at the bottom of the swing where you're actually coming through the ball. If you pull down, next thing you know, you pull your shoulder forward, and now you're releasing the ball into the floor with your thumb on top of it. Versus if you just let the ball swing down, your hand can get in a much better position on the ball and actually snap it off. A little technical stuff there on the one-handed. So now I'll go ahead and show you guys my two-handed game, and you can compare the differences. I don't think my two-handed game looks very fluid, but I don't think it's bad either. So I guess we'll find out. There we go. Nice shot. That was a pretty good shot. You couldn't tell there's a few distractions right now. The bowling alley is starting to fill up, specifically around where I'm filming right now. So apologies for that. But that was two decent shots, both one-handed and two-handed. Obviously, you can see from the two-handed bowling, I can be way to the left. That's just natural. Obviously, being two-handed versus one-handed, I throw it with A, more speed, and B, more revs. The ball will naturally cover more boards. That's completely normal. So I've kept everybody waiting long enough to talk really about my personal views of one-handed versus the two-handed game. I personally think there is an advantage to each. If you are just starting out getting into bowling, if you're very young, I do think two-handed would be the easiest way to get into the sport. Does that mean that I think two-handed is easier than one-handed? No. It's not going to be that way for everybody. And there have been tournaments that I've bowled on that I've bowled two-handed and been like, dude, I would bowl much better if I was bowling one-handed right now, and vice versa, where I'm bowling one-handed, I'm like, I would bowl so much better if I was two-handed. And sometimes you'll just have those days where things just don't quite feel right. Specifically, I do think if your name of the game is to bowl for fun, to just enjoy the sport, I think two-handed more likely is the way to go. More power, more speed, more likelihood to send cool messengers and to really blow the pins off the deck. I mean, definitely in my experience, two-handed is a more exciting way to bowl. Now, I could definitely say my highs with one-handed have been well beyond what my highs have been two-handed. When I'm dialed in one-handed, I've been on tears before that I just haven't been with two-handed bowling. And that's in part due to just my lack of experience. But for me with two-handed, the hardest thing actually has been, you can really change your release two-handed. You can get right behind the ball, you can get around it, more so than one-handed, because you don't have to worry about your thumb coming out of the ball. That's been both a blessing and a curse, because with two-handed bowling and your hand being able to change so easily, I found it very easy to, I'm wanting to throw it one way and I accidentally throw it the other way, you know, just because I haven't practiced to an extreme extent like I have with the one-handed bowling. Versus with one-handed, I feel like I'm a little more limited in the tricks I can do with my hand. It's a little more cupping the wrist, uncupping the wrist. I mean, I do have finesse tricks, but not every one-hander can finesse it to the degree that I have been able to finesse the ball at times in previous tournaments. Not that I'm amazing at that or anything, but it's just a fact. In terms of accuracy, I actually haven't noticed a drastic accuracy difference with either the one-handed or the two-handed. Actually, the biggest difference that I noticed was just trust. The very first tournament that I bowled two-handed, I found it incredibly hard to trust the ball to a certain spot, because I knew on this pattern that I was bowling on, if I got it too far right, it's not going to hook. But bowling two-handed, the ball's going to have more motion, and I couldn't keep it close inside either because I was just going through the face, and I find it very difficult for my brain to just let my body throw the ball to where I was looking it to, because I was afraid. I was afraid of overthrowing it, getting it past the break point, whatever. So that was the number one thing that I noticed that was the difference. After bowling two-handed for about a month though, that went away to a degree. It still lingers here and there. Like if I throw a bad shot, if I throw a gutter or something, I notice that I tense up and it becomes really hard to execute good shots. Apologies for my rambling here, but you know, I'm just going into my mindset on it. I think if you seriously want to just enjoy the sport, if you want to bowl on league patterns or whatever, I think two-handed is the way to go, simply because I believe it's a little more fun, it's a little more exciting way to bowl. You get those fun messengers, the really explosive strikes, like I said. If you're really all about precision and accuracy, of course you can bowl two-handed with that, but I've really found that my precision game is a lot better with one-handed. Although I did bowl on a 1-to-1 flat pattern, two-handed, average about 190, made the cut, cashed that week. So it's proof in the pudding that it's possible to do either or. And even the best bowler in the world, Jason Belmonte, he actually has both of what I'm talking about right now. He gets those explosive strikes. He just blows the pins apart. But what he also has is that extreme accuracy. And that's something that I don't think people realize is there's not a bunch of two-handers on tour who are tearing it up. There are a specific, like, 3 off the top of my head, Anthony Simonson, Kyle Troop, and Belmo, who are really dominating the sport. And it is because they are the two-handers who can be accurate and who can control that explosion, control that aggression, to just not make it outright destruction, but controlled, precise destruction. That's really the key to it. And with one-handed and two-handed, that's the key. You need to have power in today's day and age with bowling, but you also need to have accuracy. So I did just want to jut in here as well and talk about one of the things for anybody who's still watching now. If you're one-handed and want to switch to two-handed, one of the main things that's going to be hard to get used to is your offhand. So obviously in bowling one-handed, like me, I usually would have my offhand more near the top side of the ball because my thumb is supporting the ball. I mean, I can hold this here. I'm using a lot of muscle to do that, but I can hold this here pretty easily. With two-handed, if you have your hand on top of the ball, look at that position. My wrist isn't cupped. It just looks a little awkward. That was the biggest adjustment for me, was taking this offhand. And if you look at videos of Belmo or other two-handers, their fingers are all the way down here, a cupped shape like this. That's the biggest thing that has taken time to adjust for me. And then just shot making. Shot making was the biggest adjustment for me, is actually executing good shots. And obviously, a lot of that just comes with practice. I didn't practice long enough to get really good at shot making two-handed. But I do think that when I was in a groove, I was hard to beat. And that goes for one-handed and two-handed. So really the moral of the story here is that it is extremely a personal preference. I challenge everybody out there to go out and try both. If you've been bowling one-handed your whole life, go try two-handed, just for fun one day. If you've been bowling two-handed your whole life, go try one-handed, just for fun one day. You might discover that it might be what's best for you. You might discover that it's not for you, and that's completely okay. But there's definitely pros and cons to each. And I think the moral of the story is that the pros and cons to each, you have to have both in one game, just like Belmo. You got to have that explosive power with that accuracy. EJ Tackett, who had one of the greatest seasons the PBA Tour has ever seen this year, he has immense power, but he's also deadly accurate. There's a reason the guy won the US Open. So that's just the moral of the story. In my opinion, the 2 greatest bowlers in the world right now, EJ Tackett and Belmo, one-handed, two-handed, they both have the exact same thing: extreme power and extreme accuracy. So you've got to make sure you work on those 2 things, and actually the next video that I'm going to be talking about is covering accuracy. Go ahead and hit that one up. It should be going up pretty soon, if not days, then a week or 2 after this one does. And I appreciate everybody checking out the video and sticking around for this this video, basically of me ranting, you know, just talking the whole time. I appreciate it. So anyways, yeah, go check out some more of our other videos down below. There's a really simple guide on how to bowl two-handed that we uploaded as well. Please go check that out, and leave a like and subscribe for the channel. Everything helps. So, yep, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace out.